This episode is sponsored by PDS Debt. And if you've ever felt like you're drowning in credit card payments, medical bills, or personal loans, with no end in sight, you are not alone. I have been there, and I remember the anxiety that comes from, making payments every single month, watching the balance just barely move. It feels like you're stuck in this just endless loop, and that is exactly what high interest rates and fees are designed to do. Just kind of keep you in this constant state of debt. However, you can break the cycle. PDS Debt has helped hundreds of thousands of people just like you and me. They go beyond just numbers too. They actually get to know your situation, and they build a custom plan that works for you. And here's what I love. There is no minimum credit score required. Bad credit, fair credit, they don't judge. No judgment zone at all. They just help. You can finally start saving while paying down your debt in a fraction of the time. They also are A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, with thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. People trust them because PDS actually delivers. So stop living in debt. Get your free assessment and see your options right now at pdsdebt.com/10tolife. That's pdsdebt.com/10tolife. It just takes 30 seconds to start your way out of debt.
In other news today, the search continues this morning for 2 missing children in rural Nova Scotia. Crews have been combing through the woods around Pictou County since Friday, when police believe they wandered away from their home.
I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home.
Hey everybody, welcome back to an all-new episode of 10 to Life with me, Annie Elise. Thank you so much for being here today, for checking out the content, checking out the channel, and watching this case update today, or I should say situation update today. It's not an official, traditional true crime case, but it is a situation that has been highly requested that I cover because it's ongoing. It's happening right now in the moment. There is some information that we know, a lot of speculation that's out there, but it's evolving, not quickly, but it's evolving. I'll just say that. So as always, do your own research, form your own opinions, and as soon as we get more updates, I of course will jump back on here to let you know. But before I get into it, let me just let you know the premise of it. It is a case about 2 missing children. They are from Nova Scotia. It has some weird vibes on the surface when you look at the interview footage, when you hear the reasons as to how these 2 young kids, 4 and 6 years old, mysteriously vanished. And a lot of people are looking at the parents as though they have something to hide. Of course, as we know, a lot of the times when anybody gives an on-camera interview, the true crime community jumps and says, it's given Chris Watts vibes, it's given me these vibes. That, of course, is happening with this case as well. And I'll be honest, the interview with the stepdad, it doesn't give me Watts vibes, but it does give me a little bit of Orrin and Orson West vibes. And if you aren't familiar with that case, it's a horrible one. I've covered it here on my channel. You can always go back and look, but it was about 2 little brothers who went missing. It's a horrible case. So we are going to talk about this case today, everything that we know, some of the speculation that's going on out there, and I want to know from you what you make of it. What do you think? So guys, let's jump right into it. Early morning on May 2nd, 2025, local law enforcement agents in the Nova Scotia area county were called about 2 missing kids. Now, these 2 kids were 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and her little brother, 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. Now, pretty much immediately, the disappearance of these 2 kids, it made major headline news, and not just in Canada, but all throughout the U.S. I'm sure many other places as well, but for sure, in the U.S., I've been seeing it everywhere. And here's what we know so far. Lily and Jack lived with their mother, Malaya, and also with their stepdad, Daniel. They also had a little sister who was just 1 year old. Now, Lily was in elementary school, and Jack was in, what we would refer to as pre-K. However, both of the kids had been home from school that day, and this day was a Friday, and they also had been home the day before because Lily had a cough. Both of them were allegedly sick. So the original story that we heard was that these two kids just vanished that Friday morning around 10 a.m. And I've seen a few different stories regarding where the parents were and what they were doing. And the stories are pretty similar, I will say, overall. But one source noted that the parents were in the main bedroom and that they were feeding their 1-year-old daughter. And they told the investigators that Lily had come into their room a few times. They could also hear Jack in the kitchen, but they hadn't seen him yet. And I saw another source that stated that they were still in that main bedroom because they hadn't woken up that day. They hadn't gotten up in the morning yet. But they did know that the kids were awake and up because they were able to hear them playing in the other room. You know how if you're laying down, you're still half asleep, but you can hear the kids making noise and playing? That's what they describe the situation being. And according to this source, which is closest to what Malaya would later tell the media, Malaya fell back asleep for a very short period of time. And when she woke back up, she no longer heard the kids playing anymore. So to her, that's when the alarm bells started going off. Now, something that's important to note is that both Daniel and Malaya have said that they did not see Jack at all that morning. They only heard him. That's how they knew that he was awake. So when Jack is being described as last wearing a brown shirt and pants and a pull-up diaper, that's actually what he was wearing the night before because they hadn't gotten eyes on him in the morning. So either way, both versions of the story that I've seen do revolve around the two parents thinking that the kids were playing that morning, that they were awake, they were keeping themselves occupied while they were in the main bedroom. Now, remember, they're also 4 and 6 years old, so they're old enough that they didn't necessarily need to have eyes on them 24/7, but certainly young enough to where you can't just let them roam free for hours on end or even like 1 hour on end. Like, you got to check in and make sure that they're okay, right? So like I said, at some point, Malaya and Daniel did notice that the kids went quiet, that they were no longer playing, they were no longer getting into things, and it just was, silent, for lack of a better word. Which, if you're a parent, you know that that is never a good sign. I mean, we always hope for quiet, but not in this kind of way. If it goes just like dead silent, there's cause for concern, especially with 2 toddlers. So they started looking in the kitchen, the living room, and everywhere else that they could think of, calling out their names, trying to figure out where they went, what they were doing. But they weren't anywhere in the house. They weren't inside playing with each other. They weren't inside playing with toys. They weren't right outside. They weren't playing hide and seek. It was like they vanished. So apparently, both Daniel and Malaya's theory was that at some point, the 2 kids went outside together to play. Though it's very important to note that they didn't actually hear them go outside. This was all just an assumption since they no longer could find them or hear them in the home. So they think that Lily and Jack went out the back sliding glass door because, according to them, it's nearly silent. You know how you open a sliding door, it's very quiet, it doesn't like creak, it doesn't make a lot of noise, and this is something that they both mentioned in their interviews. Now, Malaya said in an interview that they, as in her and Daniel, typically liked to make sure that one of the adults was always outside watching the kids whenever they were playing outside. But she also said that Lily and Jack were also the type of kids who were never told not to go outside on their own, which I know, kind of contradictory, but that is what she was saying.
They're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them. They happen to just get out that sliding door and we can't hear it when it opens. And they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew, it was quiet. And we get up and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, "Do you hear the kids?" And he says, "No." And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. And I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call.
Now, what happened next after the 2 kids presumably opened this sliding back door to go outside and play together on their own? Nobody knows. Daniel and Malaya said that as soon as they noticed that the kids were gone, they quickly surveyed all of the area nearby. I mean, the woods, the nearby roads, all of it. But Lily and Jack were nowhere to be found. There was absolutely no sign of them. So that is what ultimately prompted them to call the police around 10 a.m. Now, obviously, 2 missing little kids is going to cause a pretty big ruckus in a community, a lot of chaos, right? Right away, people were asking questions, creating their own theories, wondering what's really the truth here? Was everybody's story adding up? I mean, you know how it goes. And it's important to note that pretty much right away on May 2nd, the very same day that these kids were reported as missing, the local authorities also announced that there was no sign of an abduction. None whatsoever, which I mentioned Daniel and Malaya's theory, but now I want to mention the detective's theory. because the investigators believe that the kids probably had, in fact, gone outside on their own, whether it was from the front door, the back door. I don't really know the specifics, and they didn't really clarify that. But from there, they believe that they did likely wander off on their own. And then, after wandering so far, they got lost, which, okay, it's possible. I mean, you have to imagine too, though, with that sort of thing, or at least I would imagine, that it would be pretty quick and easy to kind of do a search and rescue operation. I mean, how far can a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old get on foot? Even if you gave them 3 hours, how far are they truly getting on foot if you're surveying the whole area? Do all kids know not to wander off? That brings in a whole other argument and question to it, but this is what they thought. And they thought that they wandered off, they got lost, and that was, they didn't know how to find their way back home. But again, if Malaya said that they called the investigators right away when they couldn't find them, the kids really couldn't have gotten that far, which maybe that's not right. At least you wouldn't think so. Malaya said in her interview on the 2nd that she did call 911 right away. Now, Daniel said he went out looking for the kids, so I'm going to assume that the two things were probably happening simultaneously, assuming they're telling the truth. But if Malaya had called right away, to me, it just seems kind of crazy to believe that the two kids would have gotten very far at all, right? So after arriving at the house, the investigators did their own quick search. And I'm sure that they were hoping that they would find both kids just nearby in the woods, that they got turned around, they got lost, and it would just be a big false alarm, a big misunderstanding, but they were safe. But that wasn't the case. They could not find the kids anywhere. And they knew that this was going to be a much more serious ordeal than just finding them 10 feet into the woods. And basically, since the very moment that these kids had been missing, it was all hands on deck. Everybody was looking for them. Now, I've seen that apparently the area surrounding the family home isn't like one of those, okay, there's a couple bushes, a couple trees nearby. It's actually very dense and very dangerous, like very wooded. So much so that even the trained professionals who were brought in had some difficulty searching the area. It's just so dense, and it's not really an area to be messed with. On top of that, the weather in the area has been pretty rainy and pretty nasty lately. And that has made everything that much more complicated and difficult.
Weather, it makes things, a little more complicated for our searchers. Given they're in the woods, it's wet, things are slippery, footing's not the greatest. It's, the water's, it's not the best, but, they're still trudging through and they're still working hard at doing the job that they have to do.
Now, despite all of that, the searches have been as thorough as possible. And a press release by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, also noted that the following teams have been involved in this search: Volunteer Ground Search and Rescue Teams, the Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, the Nova Scotia Guard, the Salvation Army, the Joint Rescue Coordination Center, the Department of Natural Resources Air Services, Nova Scotia Public Safety and Field Communications, Canada Heavy Urban Search, and Rescue Task Force 5, plus several RCMP units, including police dogs, drone operators, and the Major Crime Unit. Now, that's just to name a few, and obviously it's not really a few. That's a lot. A lot of people are on this investigation. It's been all hands on deck, like I said. So the search for these two kids has not been lacking. It's not like they're understaffed or under-resourced, and that's why they can't scour the area and find them, or they don't have drones to go through the woods or dogs. They have got everything. Yet with each search, they have come up empty-handed time and time again. Now, I will say there were a few times during the searches where they found things that did provide a tiny glimmer of hope. For example, on Saturday, May 3rd, the day after the kids disappeared, searchers found a possible footprint, so they expanded their search in that area. However, nothing ever came from it. And I'm not sure if they were ever able to even confirm or deny whether it was a footprint in general or if it just looked like it, let alone the footprint of a child that matched a kid's sizing. I don't know, but they thought that they found something and it turned out to be nothing. Then during another day full of searching, which day specifically, I'm not sure, some of the searchers came upon what they really did hope and believe to be belongings of the kids. They found a blanket, a water bottle, and what's being described as shirts, which I'm going to assume that means just kids' t-shirts. So apparently the team showed these items to Daniel, the stepfather, but he told them that none of those items looked familiar. They weren't Lily's and they weren't Jack's. So again, another little bit of false hope that was thrown into the mix of all of this, hoping they found something, but then it ended up leading to nowhere. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, right away, the investigator said that they saw no signs of an abduction. So because of this, no Amber Alert was ever issued for the two kids. There was, however, a vulnerable missing person alert that was issued on the 3rd. And we've talked a little bit about the differences of those two alerts before, but for anybody who's listening who might not be familiar with it, I'll just give you a very brief overview. But an Amber Alert is the one that people are probably most familiar with. It's an alert for any child who's under the age of 18 that is believed to have been abducted. And it's the alert where you'll get a text message or you'll see on the freeway, little girl, brown hair, blue eyes, 3'2", whatever it is. Just the specifics about the person, and then also what is believed to be the specific make and model of the car that they were last seen in, that sort of thing. Now, Amber Alerts have more specific criteria that have to be involved in a case to actually warrant the alert going out. I've seen some cases where a kid is believed to be missing, but an Amber Alert still wasn't sent out because they don't have any other information to give. And every place does have slightly different criteria. So the final decision ultimately is made by the local law enforcement agency. So it really just depends. But a vulnerable missing persons alert is a lot broader. It's not any less important. It's still giving out information with the hope for the public to be on the lookout, to be, aware and keep an eye out. But it still isn't an Amber Alert. And Lily and Jack's family were not exactly happy with the fact that an Amber Alert was never issued, because they both strongly believe that the kids were taken. Not to mention, they just felt like not enough people in the area knew about what was going on. They wanted more awareness. So in other words, people in the area need to be aware and on the lookout, especially if the investigators believed Lily and Jack weren't abducted and were still in that area.
I appreciate the huge search effort going on right now, but we've been pushing for an Amber Alert, which hasn't been issued, not just that they could possibly be abducted, which it is a possibility that they could have been, but just an alert to let everyone know that they are missing. We had people text me saying that they weren't aware, someone else let them know that they were missing, and it would just be nice if everyone could be alerted.
Now, like I said, a vulnerable missing person alert was released. So I'm not sure if this interview was maybe before or after that alert was made. I'm not entirely clear. But either way, I do think that the interview shows that she really wanted an Amber Alert. But unfortunately, that just wasn't going to happen. Now, there are a few reasons why Daniel and Malaya seem to believe this, from what I can tell. The first reason is that they feel like Lily and Jack would already have been found if they were truly just out wandering in the woods. And I think that this is what a lot of people are also thinking and saying. Some rumors online have also been circulating that both Lily and Jack were autistic, and nonverbal autistic at that. Malaya said that both kids are in fact on the spectrum, but that they are very far from being nonverbal. They are verbal. And in fact, this is another reason why she believes that somebody took them. Apparently, both kids are very, very talkative. Whether they know you, whether they don't, they just want to talk with you, and they're very chatty. She even made a comment about them talking to every single person that they ever came into contact with at the grocery store. So based on that, she believes that if somebody was talking to them and maybe saying, get in my car, come with me, I want to show you something like that they probably would have gone willingly. It wouldn't have been this case of snatching kids up and a bunch of screaming and yelling and resisting. It could have been a very quiet thing. And she and Daniel could have been inside just not hearing or knowing what was going on outside, that there was no sort of chaos and just a very easy abduction, if that makes sense. Now, I know this in and of itself raises a lot of questions to people. Like, wouldn't you hear a car pulling up on your gravel driveway? Wouldn't you hear an adult talking to your kids? If you heard their voices, wouldn't you hear a voice that's louder or deeper? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't really know. I've seen a lot of judgment online, though, about this case, especially like saying, why didn't you teach your kids to be more cautious of strangers? Why didn't you tell them not to go with a stranger? Why would they even think that's okay? And I'll just be honest, until we know more information, I really think that the judgment and the parent shaming and the mom shaming is a bit counterproductive, honestly. And I'm not saying I think that they're great people and that they're innocent. I don't know them. I don't know what's going on. Anything is possible. But right now, the investigators are doing their own searches and their own investigations, and they have not mentioned any signs of either one of the parents doing anything wrong in this. So my opinion is that the judgment needs to be kept at bay, at least for now, until there's a reason to be judgmental. Now, on that same note, I noticed that in her interview, Malaya mentioned that due to being on the spectrum, both Lily and Jack have had troubles at school and that they've had difficulty keeping up with their peers. So it could be that if they were still struggling to keep up and understand things, maybe even if they did have this stranger danger conversation with them, maybe they just couldn't quite grasp it yet. I don't know.
They are definitely verbal, and they do have possible autism, but it's not extreme autism. It's just they have issues with school, and they don't catch up with the other kids. I just want to remain hopeful. But there's always, in a mother's mind, you're always thinking the worst.
Again, we just don't know. I mean, we could sit here and speculate, but there are so many things in this case that we just don't have the answers to yet. Either way, though, I did want to mention the theories and the opinions because it's something that we are going to get more into, as well as the public's theories and opinions, which have been very, very cutthroat, to say the least. So on Tuesday, May 6th, Daniel did a pretty quick solo interview, and he was really focused on expanding the case to other different provincial borders, feeling like the kids were abducted and that by looking in the same spots, it was basically pointless. And it seems like his thought process was that they were not in the woods, so all of those searches might be for nothing if the kids weren't even in that area.
We were searching. We covered everywhere possible. Even in the first day we did. Even with me running through the woods, I was ahead of the helicopters and ahead of the drones and stuff like that. Screaming as loud as I can, just until my throat hurt. Running through water that was up to my waist. And as soon as I got back, I wasn't allowed back in the woods until a man dressed in a military outfit said I could go back into the woods. I hate being wet and cold, so they immediately would have came right back into the house. The only two prints are right beside the house facing the road, and then that's it. Any officers they can get, head to New Brunswick border, PI border, and get them at every airport possible.
So the following day, on Wednesday, May 7th, there was an official press release, although I don't think anybody was really looking forward to the information that was provided, because the investigators decided that due to the amount of time that the kids would have been in the woods, they were probably no longer alive. So because of that, they had made the very tough decision to scale back the searches. Now, it didn't mean that the searches were completely stopped, just that at this point, the goal wasn't to find 2 missing kids as fast as possible who were likely hurt, hungry, thirsty, or scared, but now it was a mission to find the bodies. So, not a rescue, but a recovery to really piece together the truth of what happened.
As of today, May 7th, the active search efforts to locate Lily and Jack will be scaled back. We're transitioning from a full-scale search to searches of more specific spaces that have already been searched by our teams. We want to circle back to increase the probability that all clues have been found. And when transitioning from an active search to a scaled-back search, the probability of survival is taken into consideration. I want to assure you that our missing persons investigation continues. We're not packing up, and we're not giving up. Our investigation is broad, and it won't end until we know where Lily and Jack are and can bring them home. We'll continue to investigate and chase leads for as long as and as hard as we have to. We have the best investigators working every aspect of the file. We continue to appeal to anyone who have information related to our investigation and who has not yet spoken to us to contact the Pictou County District RCMP at 902-485-4333 or Crime Stoppers. Before I close, I want to reiterate that our hearts go out to Lily and Jack's family, to the community, and the people who've worked so incredibly hard to date. Many of us have children of our own and have wanted nothing more than to reunite Lily and Jack with their loved ones.
Now, whether or not you think the parents are suspicious, like a lot of the chatter I'm seeing online, I truly cannot imagine the feeling of hearing that announcement. And I'm just thinking from the perspective of it being my kids in that situation, knowing that a search is going to be scaled back and that it is a recovery mission now, because you really do want to hold on to as much hope as possible. But now having to face that hard truth of them likely not even being alive, that would be earth-shattering, even if it is something that you've probably known in your gut all along. And some people are saying that the reason they scaled back the search is because maybe they are going in a different direction, possibly looking at the parents, and knowing that the kids probably are not alive because something was done intentionally to them, which that's just a theory that is out there. And I do want to get into more of the rumors and the speculation just for a moment here. So I saw some rumors about both the mother and the stepfather, as well as their relationship. And while I'm not able to confirm every single detail, I can confirm some of them. The rumor stated that Malaya had left the county on Saturday, the day after the kids went missing, and she left the county so that she could go stay with some relatives. The rumors also state that she blocked Daniel. Now, while I couldn't find any details on whether or not Daniel was actually blocked or what the status of their relationship was, I was able to confirm through Global News that the first half of the rumors are true. She was in fact gone by Saturday, and the only people still at the house are Daniel and some of the people from his side of his family. Now, prior to Malaya leaving the area, she did briefly speak to the media. But other than that, it's pretty much been Daniel who has done the interviews and who has talked with the media.
I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home.
So like I said, we know that at least it is true that she has been staying with family somewhere else. And this is something that has been taken in a lot of different ways by the public. Some people think that it makes sense that she would go, that there's only so much she can do in that situation, and that being in the house would probably be extremely difficult. I mean, I personally can't imagine being told to sit inside and wait, having to just look out the windows to see search teams, police dogs, police cars, all of that stuff. It might be too much. But what I would personally be doing, I would never leave my house if my kids were gone. I'd either sit in that discomfort and pain, hoping that they return, or I'd be out on foot searching for them. I certainly would not leave the county, and that is just my personal opinion. But I will say she did mention in that interview that she did how difficult the first night without the kids was. So again, it might make sense, depending on who you are, why she may not have wanted to be there or stay there. But I also can definitely see why people think it's weird. Like, okay, why are you leaving the area a day later? If the blocking rumor is true too, why would you block him? Are you letting him just kind of, the expression like hang himself through all these media interviews because maybe he did something and that's why you blocked him and that's why you left and you don't want to be in the house with him? And I'm unclear of where the 1-year-old is, whether they are still in the house with him or whether she took the 1-year-old with her.
Last night was one of the worst nights because I didn't have them in their beds. And I don't want to go through that another night without them.
But like I just said, some people think that Malaya leaving the house means that she either feels like Daniel is guilty of doing something to the kids, or, in a much more out there kind of theory, that they both did something to the kids, and that the guilt is just too much to be near Daniel any longer. Which, like I said, these are strictly theories, strictly speculation that I have seen out there online. Some of them are pretty wild and very accusatory with no actual foundations to back them up. But some of them, I definitely could see the argument. If you were asking me if either of these two parents was more likely to be responsible, I would probably go with Malaya believing that Daniel did something. And my reasoning for saying that is because Daniel has been so adamant about bringing in a poly test to clear his name. Which, why does he feel the need to do that? I don't know. Maybe he saw all the online speculation and he wants to put it all to rest. We don't really know.
You said they're flying in someone to do a polygraph test. Is that on you?
That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for. I asked for that so early on, and there's not many places that do it in Canada, so they're flying somebody in.
Why do you think you need to do that? Do you think they don't believe you?
I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations and everything else.
Now, his interview was brief, but it seems like his reasoning for wanting a poly was because of both the public and potentially even Malaya's side of the family and wanting to clear it with both sides of that. Which we know polygraph tests aren't the most reliable. But if there is something going on behind the scenes between Daniel and Malaya, why not give it a try? Especially if he really is innocent and doesn't have anything to hide. It's my understanding that they've been together for a little over 3 years, and again, that youngest child is theirs together. He's only the stepfather to the 4 and the 6-year-old, Lily and Jack. So I do understand why Daniel would want to clear his name. It makes sense. They're already going through enough. No need to add in, possibly a messy breakup, even a custody battle if they can help it. Who knows what kind of information and situation will shake out from this. Or maybe he wants to take a poly because he is confident he's going to pass it, whether he's truthful or not, and he just wants the speculation to end, and he thinks it'll make him look better. I really don't know. We know Watts did a poly. I don't think he initiated it, but we know he did one. So that being said, I do have some questions regarding the theory that Daniel was more involved than he's saying. I personally don't understand how Daniel could be solely responsible for something happening to the kids if both of their stories are true, because both Daniel and Malaya made it very clear to the investigators that they were in that bedroom together, and how one minute they heard the kids playing and the next they didn't. So in my mind, it would probably be an all or nothing situation, but maybe he did something and maybe she's saying that they were in the bedroom because she's part of the cover-up, but not the crime itself. I don't know. But if it wasn't that kind of situation with both of them helping out, or even her helping with just the cover-up piece, I'm not fully understanding how Daniel was supposed to, harm both kids without making a single sound, hide their body somewhere that is good enough that the investigators still haven't found any trace of them, then cover up how he killed them, all without Malaya noticing that he was gone. I would imagine if he did something, that there is some sort of knowledge there as well. That's just my personal take. Because I still don't think that he could do this independently, even though Malaya said she was drifting in and out of sleep. Because even if you are drifting in and out of sleep and your eyes are closed, you're kind of still hearing everything that's going on around you. At least for me, that's how I am. Your senses are still on alert. You are hearing the kids playing. You're on deck for the baby, who, by the way, was with her in the room. Maybe I'm alone in that, but I feel like you're kind of always on alert. You know what I mean? I don't think that she would be out long enough to where he could do the crime, do the cover-up, do the concealment, all without her knowledge. That is, if he at all was involved, which I'm not saying that he was. Just again, the speculation and the rumor. And with all the theories and all of the speculation that I'm seeing out there, the most consistent conspiracies are involving both parents, saying that both of them are involved, whether it's the act itself together or knowledge and cover up and all of that. I've even seen a lot of people on TikTok calling this the Canadian version of Summer Wells, which I've talked about Summer's case pretty extensively on my channel as well as my podcast, so I'm not going to rehash all the details here for you. But for those of you who are not familiar, a very, very quick summary of that case is that this little girl, Summer, went missing under very similar circumstances. She was just there at home one minute and gone the next. And at first there were a lot of theories that she too just went outside and she got lost. But then the speculation shifted to a possible abduction. Then that shifted to her parents killing her and hiding her. And unfortunately, there are still no answers as to what really happened to Summer. So I really, really hope that that is not the case for Lily and Jack, and that we get some answers soon. Now, while I get where a lot of people are coming from with this, as far as the beginning stages of the search looking similar, and of course how the kids went missing, I don't know about it being the exact same situation to Summer Wells or being compared exactly to that. I don't see a ton of similarities. I personally see more similarities with Orrin and Orson West, as I mentioned. Two siblings, gone together. In that case, they said that they wandered off too. Later, they had weird interviews where they were talking about how they were rambunctious and this and that. And so I think it more so, again, if there was something nefarious at play here, I think it would be more likely that it was these two autistic children who maybe the parents were having difficulty raising and struggles with, or something else, and that something, someone or something made the situation snap. I don't know. That's only if there's shady business at play here, because it very well may be that the kids just wandered off, got lost, and unfortunately died in the woods, even though there has not been a recovery at this point. But I think that one of the bigger reasons that people feel like there's some shady stuff going on, and shady stuff that we're not being told about, is because the Major Crimes Unit has been very heavily involved, literally since day one. And here's what experts have to say about that specifically.
One thing else that stood out was that Major Crimes is still part of this investigation. They were at that press conference on Wednesday. What does that say, that this is a search and rescue / search recovery, but also that Major Crimes is involved?
Well, major crimes would always be involved with missing children because either they're lost, which is certainly what they've been hoping to be the case, and then find them alive, or they've met with foul play in some way. And there's a couple of different avenues that could go, either a stranger abduction or someone that is known to them. And so major crime would always be following that up until they really have proof one way or another as to what's happened to these kids. So that's not uncommon at all.
Now, what I took from that is that there really is not enough information to say either, yes, this is suspicious and we do think there's foul play involved, or no, we are 100% confident that there's no foul play involved. Anything is still possible at this point. And you guys know me, if someone is being suspicious, I will call it out. But right now, there's just too little information. So I'm not willing to outright persecute these parents for the sake of, possibly being right in the future so I can say I told you so, when really I don't even know. So if more starts to come out and more information starts to surface about either one of them, or if their stories start to change, or we're given more information by the investigators, maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe I'll start, going hard on them. Who knows? But right now we just don't have enough. Does it feel a little shady? Feels a little, I wouldn't even say shady, feels a little questionable, but not so much enough for me to say confidently that I think that they're involved. I do think there's some weird things though, right? I think it's weird that you heard them one minute, they were gone the next, but that immediately when you called 911 and went outside looking for them, when you heard the quiet, you couldn't find them, even though it's dense woods. I feel like by calling their name, you would hear them, they would call back to you. That feels weird. The fact that Malaya left the county the next day, that kind of sits a little uncomfortable for me as well. If she did in fact block him, I think that's a red flag, and I would be curious to know why. Again, if you're trying to distance yourself from him because he committed the crime and you don't want any part of it, you helped with the cover up, or you didn't help, and you're just now washing your hands of it and out. There's some things like that give me pause, but not quite enough for me to say, I think you guys did something. Now, even though it seems like so much time has passed, these kids haven't been missing for very long at all. This case is extremely fresh, and it makes sense why we and the investigators just don't have that many answers to anything right now. So I will definitely be keeping you guys posted with any updates regarding this case. I think we were all hoping that it was a false alarm, that they would find them a day, 2 days, even 3 days after they wandered off and went missing. But now I think that we're realizing that since more time is going by, they likely are not alive anymore. So only time will tell and give us the answers as to what exactly happened that day. And I just truly hope that it was all just either a terrible accident, that they're found, even if it was an abduction, that they're found alive and well and safe and they're brought home, or that if something else happened, whoever's responsible is held accountable. Let me know what you guys think about this case or what you've heard out there too. Again, this is such a highly requested case, so I wanted to just jump on here and share what we know. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that the parents know more than they're letting on? Do you think the stepdad knows more than he's letting on? Do you think that this is just two kids who wandered off into a very dense forest and wooded area and couldn't find their way back, and that their remains will unfortunately be found? It's a really sad situation no matter how you look at it. And so I just hope that the answers come soon, which as soon as they do, if they do, I will jump back on here and keep you posted. So make sure to check back for that. In the meantime, the more eyes on this case, the better. So please share the link to this episode with your friends, in your group chat, on your social media. These kids are still missing. Whether they are alive or not, they are still missing, and this case needs answers. So please share this video everywhere you can, and let's hope we get some answers soon. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and until the next one, stay safe. Bye.